All right, so today we are diving into the world of elderberries. You probably know them from syrups, jams, all that good stuff. But I'll tell you, there's a whole lot more to these little berries than meets the eye.
Oh, for sure.
We're going way beyond the elderberry cordial today and getting into some serious botanical stuff with this Wikipedia article all about the Sambucus genus.
Okay.
Now, I gotta be honest, I'm no botanist, but luckily we've got you here, an actual expert to help us unpack all this.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So speaking of expertise, have you worked with Sambucus much before?
Oh, tons. Yeah, the Sambucus genus, it's a really interesting one, even for someone like me who's always digging around in the plant world.
Well, get ready to geek out, my friend, because this Wikipedia article, it goes deep, like right into the weeds, literally. It starts talking about these leaves called pinnate, which apparently that's not your average leaf, right?
Nope, not at all. Basically, pinnate just means that the leaflets are all arranged along a central stalk, like on either side of it, kind of like a feather, if you can imagine that.
Okay, I'm picturing a feather.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that once you start to notice it, you'll see it everywhere in nature, which is kind of cool.
Okay, got it. So like a feather. And then, get this, the berries themselves, they're not always that like deep, dark purple we usually picture, right?
Right.
This article said they can actually change color depending on how they're processed, which I thought was pretty wild.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But it's because of those anthocyanidins they've got. Those pigments that give them that really rich color.
Yeah.
Really interesting compounds.
Okay, so anthocyanidins, those are what's responsible for the color, but they're more than just a pretty color, right? What else is up with those?
Well, for one thing, they're powerful antioxidants, but, we can get into that a little bit later.
Sure.
What's cool is that this whole color-changing thing, it actually kind of reveals something about the elderberry's botanical history. So get this. They used to be classified in the same family as honeysuckles, the Caprifoliaceae family.
Wait, really? Honeysuckles? They look
Yeah.
nothing alike.
Right. You'd never guess it by looking at them. But, well, looks can be deceiving in the plant world. It wasn't until fairly recently, with genetic analysis and all those more recent morphological comparisons that they did, that scientists realized that Sambucus actually belonged in a completely different family, the Adoxaceae.
So what does that even mean? Like, what does that family shift actually tell us?
Well, it helps us understand these evolutionary relationships between all these different plant species. Like, we thought elderberry was, I don't know, some distant cousin of the honeysuckle, but it turns out they were just friendly neighbors.
Got it.
This new family tree gives us a way clearer picture of its actual closest relatives and helps us understand, what makes Sambucus.
Family drama in the plant world. Who knew, right? So, okay, we've got elderberries, jumping families, but where do they actually like to hang out? Like, in the real world? Because this Wikipedia article, it made them sound like the ultimate survivors.
They're incredibly adaptable. You're right about that. Yeah, one thing that stood out to me in this article was it mentioned that they really love nitrogen-rich environments.
Okay.
Like, you'll often find them near compost heaps because, of course, that decomposition process releases nitrogen into the soil. So
It's like free fertilizer.
exactly, free fertilizer.
I actually read that like some gardeners use coffee grounds for the same reason, right?
Yeah.
All about that nitrogen. Speaking of gardening, though, apparently in Britain, they're practically weeds.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, they just grow anywhere. There's a little bit of sunlight. They even use them as quick hedges, this article said. Can you imagine that? Plant an elderberry, boom, full-blown hedge, no time.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. They're really hardy, those elderberries. They really can pop up in the most random spots.
Yeah.
Like, I once saw this elderberry bush. It was thriving, growing right out of a crack in the pavement.
No way.
Yeah. Talk about, tenacity, right?
So they'll grow anywhere. They basically have a built-in fertilizer-seeking system. They're tough as nails. What's the catch?
There's got to be a downside, right?
They're incredibly generous, especially when it comes to the ecosystem.
Okay, how so?
Like, this article was mentioning how they're a food source for all kinds of birds, mammals, insects. Yeah, I saw that. Like those band-tailed pigeons, I think it was, out in California, apparently. They go nuts for elderberries.
That's right.
But it's not just a free-for-all buffet, right? This article also mentioned something about their smell being like a defense mechanism. You know what I'm talking about? That distinct elderberry smell.
Yeah, that pungent smell, especially from like the crushed leaves or especially the unripe berries.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely thought to be a deterrent for certain insects. Which is really interesting when you think about it. These plants, they evolve all these intricate ways to defend themselves.
Yeah.
You have like this delicate balance they've got to strike, right? Attract some, deter others. But speaking of that smell, it actually kind of reminds me of another side to elderberries we haven't really gotten into yet. We were talking about this anthocyanidins before. Well, they're not the only compound hiding out in those berries.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What else is going on in there?
Well, especially in the seeds and stuff, you'll find these things called cyanogenic glycosides.
Cyanogenic glycosides. Okay, that doesn't exactly sound delicious.
Yeah, and they're not. They're actually pretty toxic. If you eat a lot of them, I mean.
Hold on. Toxic. Wait, so all this talk about elderberry syrup and jams and all that, that's safe, right?
Yeah, that's the interesting part. See, these cyanogenic glycosides, they break down with heat.
So what? Like there's a little chemical switch that flips from danger to delicious just by turning on the stove.
Exactly. Yeah, when you cook elderberries, especially those seeds, it completely neutralizes those toxic compounds.
Yeah.
Makes them totally safe.
Wow. That's pretty wild, although it does kind of make that pungent smell a little more intimidating now that you mention it. Oh, and speaking of this Wikipedia article, it mentioned this case back in the 80s. I think it was in California. Some folks drank some elderberry juice, but it was made with uncooked berries, and they got really sick.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's definitely a good reminder. To always be careful with this stuff. Do your research.
Yeah.
Nature's powerful.
For real. It's like this built-in safety mechanism that we've kind of lost touch with, I mean, for generations, people have known to cook elderberries thoroughly, but it's only more recently that we've figured out the whole chemical reason behind it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so we've deactivated the danger with a little heat. Awesome. But once we do that, what are we left with? Like, nutrition-wise, I mean.
They're actually surprisingly nutritious. I mean, besides those anthocyanidins we were talking about before, they're packed with vitamin C.
Seriously, the amount of vitamin C they have is kind of ridiculous. Like, this Wikipedia article was saying just 100 grams is like almost half of what you need for the whole day. That's even more than an orange.
It's true.
And it's not just vitamin C.
Nope.
Right.
They've got vitamin B6, iron, I mean, all kinds of good stuff.
So we've got this incredible transformation, right? From potentially harmful to nutrient powerhouse, all thanks to cooking. But hold up a sec. Besides just eating them, what else were people using elderberries for? Because this Wikipedia article, let me tell you, it took me down a rabbit hole of like unexpected uses. Like, did you know people have been using them as a natural dye for centuries? And get this, it's even FDA approved as food coloring.
Yeah, isn't that something? And it makes sense, right? I mean, those vibrant purples, those blues, we see it in all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Jams, jellies. I've even seen some candies that use it. It's all thanks to those anthocyanidins again, right?
So you're telling me, like, I could be eating my favorite purple candy, and it's all thanks to the elderberry? That's amazing.
Pretty cool, right?
But still, food coloring, that's just the tip of the iceberg with this stuff. This article was talking about some really out there uses, like, get this, hollowing out elderberry twigs to tap maple trees for syrup. Who needs fancy metal spouts when you've got, like, elderberry ingenuity, right?
It makes you realize how resourceful people were back in the day. I mean, they used every single part of that plant. And those twigs, they weren't just for trees either. We're talking flutes, blowguns, even syringes sometimes.
Right, so we've got elderberry dye, elderberry flutes, elderberry medical equipment. It's like the Swiss Army knife of the plant world. But we can't forget about, like, the folklore, right?
Absolutely.
Because this Wikipedia article goes deep into some pretty fascinating mythology around this plant. It's got this whole, like, protective aura around it, warding off evil spirits, witches.
It's really interesting, right, how certain plants, they just get so intertwined with folklore and superstition.
Totally.
And elderberry definitely seems to have, like, a very rich history there.
Yeah, for sure. And this article, it mentions this belief that that witches would hang out under elderberry trees.
Really?
Especially when they were full of fruit, which is kind of creepy when you think about it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, just picture it. You're walking through the woods. You stumble across a group of witches, like huddled under an elderberry tree, all these berries above them.
Oh, man.
Spooky. Straight out of fairy tale.
Right.
And then there's this whole other thing about, like, the elder mother. This, like, spirit that lives inside the tree. And you're supposed to, like, ask her permission before you cut any branches or something, or else, face her wrath.
Oh, wow. See, that reminds me of some other, like, folk traditions around the world.
Yeah.
Where trees, they're seen as having spirits or guardians. It speaks to this, like, deep reverence for nature that I think is, it's a cool perspective that maybe we've kind of lost touch with a bit.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, like, were these stories, the ones that have been passed down through generations,
Mm.
were they just a way to, like, make sure people respected nature? Like, hey, be careful, don't mess with the elderberry tree.
Right. Or else.
Exactly. Oh, and you know what this whole conversation made me think of? This might be a total tangent, but like the Elder Wand in Harry Potter.
Oh, right.
And it's supposed to be like the most powerful wand in existence. And guess what it's made of?
Elder.
Elder wood. It's like even in the wizarding world, this tree has like this special power.
That's true. Very mystical.
So we've gone from botany to berries, from toxins to tinctures, and even a little wizarding magic along the way.
That's right.
What an adventure. So I guess, like, big picture, what's your biggest takeaway from all of this?
I think for me, it's that reminder that even something as simple as an elderberry, it can have so much depth, so much complexity. Like, we were just scratching the surface here, but we've learned about its botanical history, its cultural significance, the practical uses. And, there's still so much we don't know, which is kind of exciting. It reminds us that the natural world is just full of surprises.
Totally. It's so easy to just, like, take something like an elderberry for granted, but then you start peeling back the layers and it's like, boom, treasure chest of,
Yeah.
knowledge and just really cool stuff.
Yeah. A treasure chest of elderberries.
Exactly. So to everyone listening out there, hopefully you're feeling a little more elderberry enlightened now. Maybe you'll even like look at that elderberry syrup a little differently, or maybe next time you see an elderberry bush, you'll think twice before you just stroll on by. Whatever you do, keep exploring, keep asking questions, because honestly, the more we learn about this world around us, the more amazing it becomes.